Welcome to Senegal, and good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the ICANN board, I want to welcome you to Dakar for ICANN's 42nd International Public Meeting. In principle, this is our opening ceremony, but many of us have already been here for several days, so the meeting is well underway. Of particular note, there was an African ministerial meeting last week that resulted in a very substantial communiqué that includes quite a few requests for us to work on. This represents strong engagement with the Internet as a whole and with ICANN in particular. Another very important meeting here is the AFRALO meeting, which involved the cooperation of RALOs from other regions to support this very important gathering of Internet leaders from all over Africa. I congratulate all of the participants, and I salute the other regions for their spirit of cooperation. This is in the highest tradition. I want to thank President of Senegal, His Excellency Maître Abdoulaye Wade, for taking the time to welcome and speak to the ICANN community earlier today. Thank you also to all of the other members of the government and the Senegalese community who joined us as well. There is no doubt that our work here is considered important and is being watched by people all over the world. And in this context, I want to talk to you about two traditions and then mention several of the key pieces of work. 43 years ago, I was lucky enough to be at the first meeting of the future network users of the ARPANET, which was the seed for today's Internet. We represented 4 sites, all in the western part of the United States. The meeting was called to initiate technical work to define the protocols for the new network. But the first decision we made was to visit each other's laboratories. We understood the irony in that decision. In principle, the network was supposed to decrease the need for travel. Yet we intuitively understood that face-to-face interaction and the need to learn about the working environment and the needs of the people we're working with was paramount. And thus we initiated a tradition that continues unbroken all these years and brings us here to Dakar to meet the people from Senegal and all over Africa, as well as our colleagues who are regularly spend more time on airplanes than at home. The other tradition we established right away was openness and inclusiveness. Our meetings were open to all interested parties, and our documents were available free of charge to anyone. That tradition continues among all the organizations that have sprung up to accompany the growth and breadth of the Internet. Meetings and documents for the Internet Engineering Task Force, that's the IETF, for the Internet Society, for the regional Internet registries, and of course, for ICANN, are open to anyone. And thus we encourage the sharing of ideas, participation by new people, and the idea that the network would benefit all of the users. Today, we emphasize these ideas under the rubric of the multi-stakeholder model. To me, that's a fancy way of saying the process must be open and inviting, and that all of the parties must have access to the decision processes. ICANN's policy and decision-making are a product of this commitment. Complex, contentious issues are sorted out through robust debate, discussion, and finally, consensus. All of our supporting organizations and advisory committees are part of this process. Hundreds of volunteers, perhaps even thousands, work year-round, developing policies and ensuring the safe and secure operation of the single, global, interoperable, one Internet. ICANN is not only committed to the multi-stakeholder model way of doing business now, we've committed to making this model stronger and better. We are implementing the recommendations of the Accountability and Transparency Review Team. We'll keep our commitments to continued scrutiny and improvement. It fits in with the other parts of our DNA that ICANN be of service and work in cooperation with the rest of the players in the Internet environment. We're here to serve, not to control. Our value comes from the work that we do and whether we meet the needs of the community. ICANN is only as strong and as robust as the people who commit their time and energy to the organization, the many volunteers in the supporting organizations and advisory committees, the staff, and our board. Each individual cares first and foremost about helping others and the community. And in the wider Internet community, we are but one small group among many. All of us value the leadership, energy, and commitment of the organizations that existed before us, and the new bodies that have sprung up. In essence, we work for the regional internet registries. We work for the IETF. We work for the registries and the registrars. We work cooperatively with everyone, with governments, with user groups, with service providers, and with those who participate in internet governance. We thrive on cooperation, and we welcome the participation and the creation of additional groups. And this week, our 42nd International Public Meeting is all about that participation. We're going to tackle, together, important issues that have an effect on what happens with the greatest shared resource of our time. We're going to talk about the critical transition to IPv6 and how public policy and private practices can speed that shift. I was very pleased to hear that AFRINIC, the African Regional Registry, has allocated IPv6 addresses to approximately a quarter of its 900 members. That's an excellent start, and I hope the numbers climb rapidly. We'll be talking about DNSSEC. We'll be studying who is registrant identification and bringing law enforcement, security responders, and the private sector together to fight DNS-related abuses like phishing, malware, and crimeware. We'll be talking about the continuing efforts to bring the characters of the languages of the world to DNS. And there's even more to discuss when it comes to country codes. The CCNSO, I'm told, has just welcomed its 120th member, .ir from Iran. We'll be hearing news from Senegal, Nigeria, Japan, and Denmark. And we mark the 25th anniversary or longer of 19 of the TLDs, including quite a few CCTLDs, and we have the very beginnings of the recognition that I hope that we can bestow on these. The list of names are on the screen. We are arranging certificates of recognition, and we'll try to establish a tradition over time. And of course, we have our internal organizational matters to deal with. Our CEO, Rod Beckstrom, has announced his plan to step down next July, leaving us with an appropriate amount of time to find his successor. We will have many contributions from the community, including a session this afternoon on this process. We are also examining our rules for conflicts of interest and ethics, always seeking to improve them, and our practices that go along with those rules. All that and more is the full ICANN agenda this week. No matter what specific technical issue we come together to talk about this week, we are talking about one big thing. We're all focused on ensuring our single global interoperable internet continues to connect everyone everywhere. When we started, our world was about a few dozen universities in the United States. Today, our world is, literally, the world. That's why it's such a great thrill and for me and for ICANN to be here this week in Senegal. The internet now includes a couple of billion people, and we consider that to be no more than a good start. So on behalf of the ICANN Board of Directors, I officially welcome you to Dakar and our 42nd International Public Meeting.